Gage Caligaris is founder and CEO of Ledgebrook, a tech-enabled E&S MGA aiming to provide a fast and simple quoting experience to wholesale brokers while delivering best-in-class pricing and risk selection using its next-generation tech stack. All right, Gage, good to see you. It's been a little while.
Yeah, and great to see you too.
I think it was, I'm trying to think here. Is it probably 8-9 months ago that we met up here in Austin? You were in town meeting with, I think, some investors or prospective investors. Sounds like that round went pretty well.
It did. That's right. We were in Austin meeting our lead investors over at Brand Foundry, and we're able to hook up with you at a wine bar and discuss some of those topics. I know that's an interest of yours.
That's right. I know we definitely talked and consumed a little wine. It was a good time. And to start, that was our first meeting. But of course, now we're working together, and we'll talk some more about that too. I'm sure in good course. But first, I want to hear a little bit more about your mission. First thing that catches my attention is you're talking about wholesale brokers here, and so much of at least the first wave of insurtechs was all about direct. And you're taking this tact, which obviously a lot of people are saying, look, you can't direct everything. And I think everyone agrees on that. But I'm kind of curious how you're seeing that and how it relates to Ledgebrook and what you're doing.
That's a great question, Dan. And so to start at the highest level, when I think about what we're doing at Ledgebrook, it's really combining the best of modern technology with insurance people who know what they're doing, right? So I'm somebody who has training as an actuary. I've been in the industry for almost a decade. And so I'm able to kind of access an E&S wholesale broker market, or even know what it is, right? To be able to address the pain points there. And so I think that's a big difference from some of the insurtech wave ones that really focused on the more consumer facing products. So at Ledgebrook, that's what we want to do. We want to pair the best of technology with the best of insurance expertise to offer a better experience for those wholesale brokers.
Okay. And taking a step back here, because we've got listeners of all different backgrounds, might be life insurance folks. And could you tell us a little bit more about E&S? Obviously, that's excess and surplus. Tell us a little bit more about what the typical products are, what the typical covers are, typical customers, and just kind of flesh that out for people who are new to E&S.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we talk about E&S, we're talking about the non-admitted market. So we have total freedom of rate and form. So the risks that end up getting placed here, especially through wholesale brokers, are things that are kind of your normal coverages like GL and property, but extra hazardous exposures. Or on the other hand, it's really specialty exposures like things like fine arts or aviation. All of this stuff would kind of come under the E&S umbrella. And so for whatever reason, these risks can't be placed in the normal market. They come to E&S, and then we offer an experience that would allow them to bind coverage.
Got it. And a moment ago, you said, what did you say, extra risk or special risk or something like that? What are some of the kinds of...
hazardous.
Hazardous. That's the word you said. Yeah. I got curious. There's got to be some interesting ones in there. What are some of the interesting things you see?
Yeah. So I think if you think about how does a policy make its way to the E&S market, it has to be rejected by a number of admitted insurers. So if you see something maybe in the habitational market, if you see something like student housing or certain condos in Miami or low income housing, maybe you can't price that effectively on your filed rates. So you'd say, hey, I'm underwriting, I can't do that. Let's send it to the wholesale broker. And then somebody like Ledgebrook would provide a quote. So the pricing would be a little bit higher, but then those risks would be able to access a market with different forms and different coverages.
Okay. And then actually, before I dive further into what you're doing now, I'm kind of curious to hear where the idea came from. I mean, I know that you were at, I believe, Liberty previously. Did you have the idea while you were at Liberty? Take us through the genesis.
Yeah, sure thing. So I spent 8+ years at Liberty Mutual. And when I started, I came up through the actuarial program, doing my tests, managing pricing teams, property, general liability, excess, umbrella. But then the most recent role I held there was kind of what started the genesis of what became Ledgebrook, because I led up the new mobility pod, essentially an internal incubator of sorts where you would see risks from across the new mobility space. So autonomous vehicles, EVs, ride hail, ride share, subscription, micromobility, all these kind of things, right? And so our mandate was to create new products and scale that business. And so as part of that role, we were able to scale up from, under 50 million in GWP to close to 500 in about 18 months.
Oh, wow.
Expanding with our big ride hail partners, launching, 3 new products. And so as part of that, I was able to kind of see all the different parts of an insurance company, whether it claims routing, billing errors, surplus lines lawyers, you name it, in addition to the core actuarial and underwriting stuff that we would think about as an insurance company. And so getting exposure to all of that made me kind of think, hey, if I can basically do this within the big mothership, what if I kind of struck out on my own and took off the parking brake of being able to go as fast as I want to go? And so
sounds like you're already going pretty fast from those kind of GDP gains. And speaking of going fast, I understand you set some sort of a record around your actuarial exams at Liberty.
I did. I like to go fast. At everywhere. There's a website called Actuarial Lookup. You can find me to this day, the fastest man to pass all these tests. But I came in, I did that because I felt like I was coming in the industry, a little behind, because I started my career trading exotic derivatives at Barclays and a couple other places. So I turned 26-year-old intern, still no healthcare, no 401k. And so I felt like, hey, I better pick up the pace if I'm gonna commit to this insurance thing, and I'm glad I did.
Jeez. Okay. Well, who needs sports when you can monitor all the actuaries and cheer for them? And is there a betting line in Vegas for this? It's like I honestly knew about insurance every time that you can just go and just monitor all of these things. It's like,
you don't want to get into actuarial fantasy football league.
Yeah, exactly. An actuarial fantasy football league. All right. So anyway, so you're purely on the actuarial side. Then you're ended up in a place where you're like actually, moving GWP, launching new products. I mean, that's a whole new world. Let alone startups. We'll get to that in a moment. But how is that transition? So that you're thinking about growing GWP?
Yeah, it really opened my eyes to a lot of things because I'd been in purely actuarial roles before, and then this was not, right. This was product manager there. But I loved it. I'm a builder, right? That's basically what I am. I like doing stuff. I have a math background, so actuarial was a good fit and a good entry point to the industry. But basically, that's what I like to do. I like to wake up every morning, have a great attitude, work hard, push the ball forward, and one day kind of adds to the next. And that was definitely something I felt in that role at Liberty and something I bring to Ledgebrook every day.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I mean, if you got a big brain, doing something mathematical is a good way to get in the door because it's of course less experience related, and you can run circles around people just by working harder and grinding harder than the guy next to you. So.
Yeah, having a head for numbers. I sometimes I get nostalgic when I see an Excel spreadsheet because it's been a while since I've got to dive deep into those, but.
Yeah,
I love when that part of my brain gets used.
Yeah, I'm the same way when I'm walking around the office and I see, walk past an engineer and they're coding because my story has a lot of similarity to a startup founder being a business guy, but my way in was coding because being the core substance of what we do, just as being an actuary is the core substance to what you do. And in both cases, like, hey, they don't care how old you are. They don't care where you went to school. And they just care how well can you do it? How good are you with the numbers? Can you write the code?
That's exactly right. The tests are the great equalizer on the actuarial field.
So yeah, anyway, then that must require, that just opens up a whole bunch of realm of soft skills and stuff like that. I mean, they've got to be helping you today. We'll come back to that. All right, to the genesis. You want to take off. You felt you had the parking brake on there because you're only doing a 10x in GWP growth.
Yeah, we got big dreams at Ledgebrook. So to go back to that, I was working there. I loved it. I loved the people. It was the greatest job I ever had. But I started to think, hey, maybe I can branch out and do this on my own. So I thought about what are my value propositions? I'm an insurance insider, right? I've been doing this for a while. So targeting a market like E&S that's only kind of accessible to an insurance insider, that makes sense. And it also happens to be underpenetrated with data, technology, all these things that I can bring to the forefront as well. So a tech-enabled E&S MGA is where we landed. But we've got bigger dreams, right, than that too. I think going full stack in the long run and then becoming this might sound crazy, Dan, but I want to become a globally diversified reinsurance carrier. I want to be a Munich, a Swiss Re.
I was going to get to
the
that.
ground up.
Your recent article in the Insurer about your aspirations there. Definitely looking forward to it.
I know. It sounds crazy. I don't expect anybody to believe me or get behind it, but it's really something I think we can do. I think we want to start with this E&S. We can go to market fast, right? We can prove ourselves. We can build the balance sheet. But then there's a lot of areas of the insurance market that aren't necessarily super accessible to the tech first folks that we can bring a lot of innovation to. And so I'm excited to see how far Ledgebrook can take us with that.
Okay. So let's talk about that actually. Okay. So you start as, from an idea to an MGA and you want to climb the ladder as MGA to carrier to reinsure. The move from MGA to carrier, that's something I see a lot. MGAs want to be in control of their own destiny. They don't like just giving away some of these margins to the carriers and so forth. They also don't like what they're being charged sometimes by carriers who, are skeptical of them because there's a trust component. Turns out definitionally startups haven't been in business that long, or they wouldn't be startups. What you're suggesting on the reinsurance piece, that is new to me. What do you think is missing in reinsurance that is a gap that could be filled?
That's a great question. I think the way I think about it, a lot of the incentives are really different, right? For any big insurance company versus a startup, right? Where you want to, in a big company, you want to protect and perfect. I remember my wife was in business school. She learned about that one day. She told it to me. I was like, I guess that is right. Protect and perfect. Whereas as a startup or with someone with a startup mentality, you can come in and say, hey, what are the opportunities here? What's been done the same way for a long time that maybe with a fresh perspective we can change? And I think reinsurance, many of the kind of ways of doing business and the ways of pricing things and looking at opportunities, lends itself to a fresh perspective potentially.
Okay. Then let me ask this. What type of insurer right today is not being well served by reinsurers? Is it you looking mostly at MGAs, or are you thinking some of the traditional ones too?
Heck yeah, I think there's a lot of different answers there, right? I think MGAs are one area that I'm familiar with, right? As we're going to search out reinsurance for ourselves, right? People want to see really long track records, right? Or a really narrow focus on what you're doing. And there's different opportunities, right? That might go by the wayside because of that, or wanting, so much certainty on certain deals. But I think a lot of times when I was kind of inside the bigger companies, right, the first thought is, I can't get this wrong. No matter what, let's go towards the stuff that's 95% certain to make us money, instead of maybe there's some higher margin things that maybe you're 85% it'll go right. If it goes wrong, it's not that bad, but that's too much risk in some cases for people to take advantage of the great opportunities that are out there. And so thinking about things from a more actuarial, expected value, financial lens, I think is the way I think about things first. And that could be beneficial in many ways.
So what are
that's right
about right now?
That's a great question. So let's put the big audacious dreams on the shelf for a minute.
We covered the bookends. We covered founding and we covered the big audacious dream. We're narrowing our way in.
No, it's great to talk about, right? Because it's something as a founder that's close to my heart, but that's not in the near term for us. What we are going to be in the near term is a tech-enabled E&S MGA that's going to serve our wholesale brokers really well, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're a wholesale broker, what you want is responsiveness and consistency, right? You want to know that we're going to get back to you quickly and our appetite's going to be consistent. You go from one underwriter at Ledgebrook to the next, you're going to get the same answer. And you go 1 month to the next, you're going to get the same answer on appetite. It's going to be crisp, clean, efficiently delivered to you. And, this is not a secret, right? I think you could ask anybody if this is what they want. But we can deliver that with technology solutions, right? So our innovation at Ledgebrook is not anything on the distribution play like you imagined before. We're not asking our broker partners to do anything differently. What we're saying is send us the submissions and we'll process that more efficiently in a number of ways so we can get back to you faster and smarter on the pricing side.
Does that mean they transmit the submissions in the traditional ways?
Send us an email with a PDF, some embedded Excel files, and we'll do the rest, right? So to talk a little bit about the technology approach, and I want to talk about Socotra in relation to this too.
One of my favorite topics.
We're adding value in a number of your favorite topic, right? Yeah, we can agree on that one. So what are we doing, right? So there's a number of stages for these submissions, right? There's a submission intake. So we'll use some AI to intake faster, more efficiently. There's triage. What are we going to work on? What are we not? Over half of the wholesale brokers.
Is the AI for interpreting the emails? Because so the app.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. So let's get this
you're really
data in our
focusing
systems
on
quickly.
having minimal interruption to the brokers compared to the way they're used to operating.
Yeah, so they won't see any of this, right? We got to intake the data, we got to triage the submissions, we got to store that data in an efficient architecture where we can get it back out and do analysis on it. And then at the end, the fourth step is we got to tee it all up for the underwriter, right? So they're not poking around on 15 different screens and 3 different systems for different lines of business. And so by adding value on each of those 4 steps of the chain, intake, triage, data storage, and data display for the underwriters, it's just going to be a much more seamless experience internally. And by removing those internal frictions, we're going to, implicitly remove a lot of the external frictions that our broker partners will feel.
And of course, that's where we met. So I feel like I interrupted you when you were about to say something awesome about Socotra. So I apologize.
Always. So that's always on the tip of my tongue, Dan. I'm always about to say something awesome about Socotra, but Socotra is a really important part of our journey, right? Because it's the most modern policy admin system, and it gives us the most flexibility to build and launch new products on top of it, right? So we're going to market with a GL product, but none of the technology approach I just described to you has anything to do with GL specifically. So once we can prove that we can be the most responsive and the most consistent, there's nothing stopping us from launching an E&S D&O product, an environmental casualty product, a non-cat property product. And we're going to need a policy admin system that's flexible enough and forward-thinking enough and modern enough to allow us to do that in quick succession. And so that's one of the big reasons why Socotra was the right choice for us.
And you guys, I could spot it when I first met. You guys have a great team. The things, when I'm meeting with someone for the first time and describing what we do and how you might interact, I usually have to start very basic. And you guys were like already there, like, oh, geez, why would I buy software that doesn't have open APIs? And I didn't have to explain that.
Yeah,
you're just like, you already got it. So I knew that by taking that and scaling it, that you were going to achieve high velocity in the ways that we had designed it for you to achieve. So I'm excited to hear that you're getting there.
We are. And it's funny that, the idea of Socotra connected with me immediately. There's 2 things that stood out. Stripe for policy admin system. I get it, right? Like I get what that is right away. And then the consulting versus product. You guys are a product, not a product or a consulting masquerading as a product, right? And that's kind of what some of the negative experiences folks have had, right, with other PAS implementations. And so getting the value prop right away, getting to work with great people. There's a coach team. I mean, yourself, I've enjoyed all our interactions, but everybody that we work with day to day, man, they've been so helpful.
Oh, thank you.
Can't say enough.
Yeah, really, really appreciate that. Then how did you think about, because I'm thinking about your journey from math to actuarial to pushing GWP and doing the projects you did at Liberty to startup, and now into tech, which starts to come full circle a little bit because tech's very mathematical. But how did you, from the insurance background, how did you come into thinking about technology? What was it like to make that, to make that leap? And how how did you educate yourself? How did you come to get to have the intuition that you had when I first met you about what a system should look like? and how do I spread it to other people in insurance?
Yeah, that's funny that you ask it that way. So having worked inside an insurance company, right, and been responsible for the technology implementations of my new GL model, right, or new product builds that we're doing in the mobility pod, right, you see a lot of the frictions that they're just, you can't believe it, right? We're asking for a new broker code, should just be a number that we can now do business under 6 months, right, to implement something like that. We wanted to implement a new GL model, and they quoted me 8 years to implement that.
Wait.
And it's just like, wait a minute, that can't be right? I don't know a lot about technology, right? But let me educate myself because I think we can do better than that. So from there, it was like a learning process and talking to people who know a bit more about technology than I do, but getting exposed to some of the ideas that are out there made me kind of recognize when I saw a good thing.
Yeah. And then where are you in the cycle right now? Are you live? Kind of which products, states, things like that? Or are you in development?
We're in development. So we're looking to go live in Q4 of this year with our first product in time for 1/1s, basically. And that'll be a GL product with supported excess. So casualty, it's the biggest product. We're going to focus on manufacturing is where we have our deepest expertise. Our CEO kind of wrote the Bible on guidelines and rates and all that kind of stuff in his last 2 stops. So that'll be our focus. And then we'll write other businesses that our broker partners need that can help support that. And so that'll be our first product. But then once we get this thing up and running, like I'm saying, we could launch additional new products, 2 or 3 more in 2023. And that would just depend on the underwriting talent we can source and the market conditions. We're flexible as long as we get the technology working. The sky's the limit.
All right. Well, I was asking because I was curious to get to the time frame. Then you're well under a year in your deployment, and maybe add another year from founding an idea. And I'm just comparing that to this 8 year that was estimated to you. That's like, I can start a new company, hire a team, raise money, define a product, build a tech stack from scratch, and get live in a quarter of the time, let alone budget.
Yeah. Those were some of the thought processes, right? I'm not going to lie. I actually met with my former boss, best guy I ever worked for, just last week, and they still haven't posted my role, Dan. It's been 5 months. So that's the speed at which sometimes legacy players can go, which is fine. It's great. I love everybody at Liberty Mutual. I honestly spent a decade there, right? That's the proof. But yeah, we can move faster, right? We can go at the speed that we want to go. And when we have partners that enable us to do that, you can start to get some momentum, right? And make things happen pretty quickly.
What do you think is the future for innovation at the tier ones? Are they just doomed? They're it's just going to be slow forever, and they're just going to move really slowly and maybe acquire? Do you think they're going to kind of pull in some best practices and move a little faster? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I think it'll be a combination of both, right? So I work in an innovative part of a big insurer, right? And so it can be done, but there's just a lot of roadblocks to that. A lot of them have CVCs now, right? Where they're in the venture space. They're working with these startups much more closely, which I don't think you could say was the case 15 years ago, even 10 years ago. So the desire is there, the people are there, but there are some structural, limitations to what you can do. I mean, even as successful as we were in the mobility pod growing that thing, does it really matter to a $40 billion premium company? It's sort of a rounding error at the end of the day, right? So does it really behoove you to kind of to start new things, or really to perfect your existing products that are in the many billions of dollars? It's always going to win, right? And it should always win the bigger parts. So I think the jury's out on how it will play out, but I think the thought processes are there and the desire is there. So
it sounds like they're in a situation where they can afford to be slow for a while longer.
Yeah, or work on the big stuff, right? Yeah. Yeah, which makes sense, right? That's the right play. And then, folks like me trying to start my own thing, and we'll see how that plays out too.
Okay. I also read recently you had a really exciting hire in Steve Mills. I'm kind of curious. Congratulations, president of E&S over at Hanover, I understand. I'm kind of curious how'd you find him? What's he working on? And how do you think about bringing that kind of talent, experience, and network into a startup?
Steve's unbelievable. I first met him. I just posted a job on LinkedIn, and he responded to it. He said, it said the posting spoke to him.
Looking for president of E&S at Tier 1. What's that? What had there? Okay.
I kid you not. You never know, right? Just go out and start talking to people. You never know what you'll find. Yeah. But it was that simple. And we really connected, right? And then over a period of weeks, kind of talked about what we could do together as business partners and his experience and how I would enable him, right, to do what he's been doing before, right? So I'm not asking Steve to do anything different than he's already proven he can do over 30 years. He's run it amazing loss ratios, amazing combined ratios, but frankly, with one hand tied behind his back, right? Given the technology infrastructure at some of these legacy places. So that's my job. My job is just, hey, Steve, do the underwriting, blank check, do whatever you need to do. I'll enable you with the technology and processes and people and culture and all that kind of stuff. And so that's the 1-2 punch that Ledgebrook brings to the table.
Got it. So it sounds like you guys are pretty philosophically aligned out of the gate. In fact, the fact that he applied to the job kind of definitionally meant that he got it.
Yeah, when I read the little cover letter he sent, I couldn't stop smiling because I was like, this is somebody who gets it, right? Like, now it's my job to make sure I give him the experience that makes it worthwhile for him, to bring his expertise and his leadership, right? Like there's a lot of people who are super experienced and really nice, but Steve is a great leader, right? He's a leader of people. As we're having these conversations with folks like yourself around the industry, like every time we talk to somebody, it's like, oh, I worked with Steve Mills 10 years ago. He's the best, right? And so that takes us far as well. Just you be good to people, Dan. Eventually it comes back around, and that's definitely the case with Steve.
Well, I haven't met him yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. Maybe around ITC or another conference. Certainly, if you ever bring him down to Austin again, I would love to see him. Very cool. So getting back to the broker experience, I think it's really cool. What I'm hearing is you're isolating variables a little bit, that they have the same emailing experience that they're used to. And to what extent are you doing that because you think that interaction is not going to change? And to what extent is it that you're just concentrating somewhere else, and once you've got that working, then you're going to provide new experiences for the brokers, like an app or I don't know what, or even bypass brokers, but you're probably going to stick with brokers long term?
No, we're going to stick with brokers, wholesale brokers only, right? This is a segment. This is our customer. And, as much as the policyholder is, wholesale brokers are our customers, and we're going to exclusively use that as our distribution channel now and forever. But what you're getting at, I think, is that we are isolating, right? We are trying to make our internal processes better because, frankly, as such a small fish, we can't ask our partners to change their behaviors, right? It's just too big of a hurdle. It's just not going to happen. So we have to play our hands as it dealt, control what we can control, be efficient on our side, and then just provide that great experience. And then, hey, maybe in a year or two, once people start saying, hey, there's something going on here, we can offer them more of a custom experience. But for right now, we can't expect to change behaviors. So we're kind of taking the lay of the land as it is.
All right. So let's see. How's lockdown treated you? I understand you used to travel quite a bit before. That's probably had to put the clamps on that. Hopefully you'll be able to get back to, at least I've been hearing you're quite a world traveler.
Oh yeah, I miss it so much. My wife and I were just talking about that this weekend. We had been to, 25, 30 countries
Wow.
together over the last, handful of years. And international
Most
travel is something
underrated
we
country
really,
to
really
visit?
love to sink our
What's the
teeth into. Just always a new place, never the same place twice. And that's something we really miss. But then we had COVID, we had a couple kids, and your life changes. You don't always get the same opportunities you did. So glad we took advantage of that.
we were talking about some of the travel you've done. You mentioned 25 to 30 countries. I was curious. Yeah, I guess what I'm thinking is first thing that comes to mind is like, what's the underrated gem that you'd like to share? What place have I probably not been to that I should know about?
That's a good one. So one of my favorite things, I love going to visit ancient sites,
Okay.
like big, like the pyramids in Egypt or Machu Picchu. And Angkor Wat though was my favorite personally. So this an old temple complex in Cambodia that was kind of covered up in the forest, and then was excavated within the last 100 years or so, and it just blew my mind. It just blew my mind. These brilliant structures rising out of the jungle right when the
Wow.
sun comes up.
And where is that?
It's in Cambodia. It's in Cambodia.
And how do you get there? Like, where's the nearest airport to this place?
So
Or
you can
how
fly
does that
in.
work?
You can fly in, but it was funny because we were doing a trip to Thailand, so we ended up taking an 8-hour bus across the border there. Would not recommend, but we got to see a bunch of the countryside, and it's an absolutely beautiful country. Beautiful country.
Very cool. Let's see. Any other? What's your recommendation that's not an ancient ruin for people to check out?
Good question. So I think I have to say our favorite place we ever visited was China. My wife's from China originally, and so getting to see her country with her, trying all the foods,
Mhm.
wow, just incredible. From hot pot to dim sum and everything else in between. I think China was the best place we've ever visited.
All right. So I still have not been there. I don't know if I'm up to 25 countries. I'm probably close to that. I think I've been to 6 so far this year, but travel's definitely picking back up. I'm not sure what you're seeing on your end of the business, but the conferences are in full swing.
Yes, they are. That's right. And I'm excited to go to ITC. Dan, I've never been to
I was just
ITC
going to
before.
say, you've not.
Never.
Okay. Well, it's something. So, and then of course, that's probably the next time I'll see you in person is going to be on the stage on September 20th for the Modern Core Tech Forum. I believe that you're going to be on stage with the CEOs of Covertree and Hippo, and I'm quite excited for that. That's a workshop, of course, we're doing that Socotra is hosting at ITC. So people check that out. It's the afternoon of September 20th. If you want to see Gage, that's a great time to see him. Last question is anything you're hiring for right now, or people you're looking to meet, or someone's listening and they think what you're doing is really cool. What kind of person should reach out to you?
Hey, honestly, anyone, right? Yes, we're hiring. We're always hiring underwriters. We're always hiring engineers. So those specifically would be great. But frankly, as long as I've been in insurance, the insurtech world is still new to me, right? I just said I've never been to ITC before. So I'm open to meet anybody and everybody. And so honestly, email me, gage@ledgebrook.com. I'll get back to you. Shoot me a text, 215-630-1098. I'll get back to you. I want to meet anybody and everybody, Dan, that I can right now. And I'm super excited to go to ITC and be part of the panel with Socotra to further that goal.
Great. Well, the workshop last year was, I think, 100 people, more than 100, standing room only. It's going to be a pretty good crowd there. So excited to have you there. I think it's only going to grow this year. Obviously, we have some announcements and looking forward to having you there with Covertree and Hippo. The date on that, September 20th. And with that, I think look, Gage, it's been great chatting with you. Thanks for making the time and sharing some really interesting stories here of how you got going, where you're headed from here, the mission, of course, the experiences in big insurance and so forth.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure, Dan. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for the travel recommendations.
You got it. If you need some specific ones, I can get you some restaurant recs too. I know you're a big foodie as well. So anyway, maybe we'll talk about that in ITC. But thanks for having me today.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Bye now.